This teen made his teacher's life agony day after day, so his dad decided to teach him a lesson. Imagine walking into your high school class only to be confronted by your worst nightmare. For some, it would be standing naked in front of the whole student body. For others, it would be being humiliated by their favorite teacher. But whatever the scenario, the thought is pretty scary, right? Well, for one kid from Texas, one particular nightmare became an embarrassing reality. Will he ever get over the shame? Bray Hayward is a 17-year-old high school kid from Texas. He attends Rockwall Heath High School, where he's known for being a chatty guy. However, in May of 2017, something seriously embarrassing happened to him, and it might change his talkative reputation forever. You see, having already received some warnings from his teachers to clean up his act, Brad Jr. was on thin ice. In fact, one of his teachers was in an email correspondence with Brad's dad regarding Brad Jr.'s behavior in the classroom. My son was getting into some trouble in one of his classes in high school, and his teacher was emailing me, Brad Sr. told Inside Edition. As a result, Brad's dad was concerned about his son's attitude. Brad Sr. maintained, though, that his teenage son was not a bad kid. It was just that Brad Jr. tries to get a few laughs out of whatever crowd is around him at the time. Nevertheless, this preoccupation was certainly proving disruptive in lessons. His dad went on to explain that the problem with Brad Jr. was he always liked to be the life of the party. This meant then he joked around a lot and sometimes annoyed his teachers. Consequently, his attitude had to change. So his dad came up with a plan. Yes, he made a promise to one of his son's teachers that the next time Brad Jr. distracted his classmates, he was going to step in. Literally. Indeed, Brad Sr. told the teacher that he'd come into the class himself if his son caused any more trouble. And it wasn't long before his parents received an email explaining that Brad Jr. had overstepped the mark again. We got an email on Thursday saying he did something and got all the kids to laugh. It was disrespectful, his dad told Inside Edition. It was, therefore, time to put his secret plan into action. Conveniently, Brad Sr. has Fridays off from work, so he was free to teach his son a lesson the very next day. I got ready, I went into school, but I didn't mentally prepare for what I was walking into, he later recalled. The 53-year-old dad subsequently strolled into his son's physics class and took a seat. The teacher who was in on the prank directed Brad Sr. to his son's then empty seat, and they waited for the school bell to ring. Then the kids started pouring into the classroom, chatting to one another. At first, Brad Jr. had absolutely no idea that his dad was there as he greeted his friends in the classroom. But the teenager soon heard a familiar voice say, "Hey, Bradley." He consequently jumped up and caught sight of his father sitting in his class. Indeed, the look on his face must have been utterly priceless. His friends, of course, couldn't stop laughing. They found the whole situation hilarious. But what about Brad? Well, he was obviously a little embarrassed. Nonetheless, the teacher carried on the class with both Brads sat side by side. There's no doubt that the teenager's subsequent behavior was perfect in that class. After all, he had his father breathing down his neck. So, did the prank teach him a lesson he'd remember forever? Well, yes and no. The idea was to embarrass his son in front of his friends, but actually after a while, Brad Jr. didn't mind his dad being there. If I intended it to be uncomfortable for Bradley, it was way worse for me, his dad admitted to Inside Edition. When asked if he'd consider dropping in on a high school class again, the 53-year-old was adamant that he would not. Indeed, he told BuzzFeed News, "I pray it was a one-time thing. I don't think I'd ever do it again." Neither Brads are living it down yet, though. After all, Brad Jr.'s sister, Molly, found the whole thing so amusing that she tweeted a photograph of her dad in the physics class, and the story immediately went viral. Brad Sr. acknowledged that his prank didn't have quite the effect that he'd hoped for. Nevertheless, the stories taught his son that when his dad threatens to do something, he really means it. Whether or not the high school senior continues to act up remains to be seen. However, what is certain is that his father won't be joining any more classes. In fact, he'd be too terrified that the teacher might call on him to answer a question. Please share this video with your friends below.